during Michael Jordan's career, he had one agent, and it's our next guest, David Falk, who joins us on the Mattress Warehouse Hotline.
David.
How you guys doing?
David?
Are you hanging out in D.C. or down in Kiowa? Where you been?
No, I'm in D.C. I got my older daughter, Dana, and her husband in Kiowa, my younger daughter in L.A., so we're doing the ultimate social distancing.
There you are.
Very nice.
Are you going to get down to Kiowa here the next few weeks in the summer?
I'm planning on it. It's beautiful down there. It's 70. The golf courses are open, and so it's beckoning.
How have you been dealing with the no golf here in Maryland? I know you're a big golfer.
Well, I built a new house in Burning Tree, and one of the most important pieces of equipment I put in the house was not a dishwasher or, an oven. I put in a golf simulator, so I'm playing almost every day.
Shocking.
Nice.
I've had two rounds last week, 69 and 70. And
What's it like to be rich?
I hope it translates into the real world because I feel really damn good on my simulator, but no one sees it.
Yeah, that's great. David's on his golf simulator. It's probably about 10 grand. I played on the Wii yesterday, Wii bowling. So a little bit of a different life.
And that's not 10 grand.
No.
Hey, I don't know who says that, Eric, but if you could find one for 10 grand, you call me, I'll buy one for you.
Right,
Oh, you must have a high-end one.
Yeah.
Of course he does.
They come out with new ones all the time. Are you constantly upgrading yours?
Well, yeah, they upgrade the technology all the time. It's really, really fun. I mean, I'll tell you a funny story. So, a really good friend of mine named Kojo Mills, who lives a couple of blocks from me, he started NBA Africa. He's a really, really smart guy. He had one, and I was looking around, and the top one was called Full Shot. And so I went over his house, and he knew I had a place at Kiowa. So he said, come on, we're going to play. So I went over on a Saturday, and it wasn't working. He couldn't get it to work. He called the company up. There was no service there. So, wow, this is a freaking great endorsement for the company. So I went back the next day. They had fixed it. And he said, I'm going to put on the Ocean Course at Kiowa for you. I said, great. Put on hole number 2. It's the par 5. It's a great hole. So he said, this is hole number 2. I said, Kojo, that is not freaking hole number 2. It doesn't look anything like hole number 2. So the next week I went up to somewhere in Anne Arundel County to some golf club, and they had the one I bought, and HD. HD Golf is a Canadian company. And I said, put on hole number 2 at Kiowa. Every blade of grass was perfect. It looks exactly like it. It's really realistic. And Full Swing is the name of the first one. So I bought HD Golf, and I love it. I have my friends come over. It's better for practicing really than for play. Like
right.
You play closest to the pin, and it has shot data, so you can see if you're coming inside, or you got the face closed, or you have too much spin. It's really a lot of fun.
David, what is I don't know if you've been there, but what is Michael's new club? I think it's called the Grove 23 down in Hobe Sound. What's that like?
Have I been there? Of course I'm a member. Do you think he's going to build a club and I have a choice? Like if I play, first of all, it's phenomenal. It's phenomenal. Michael, a lot of people, don't know this. Michael has an amazing touch for design in his homes. I mean, it's not a question of spending. You can spend a lot of money and not have a nice house. He has impeccable taste. The club is really, really fun. So I actually, and the best part, I've been down there 3 times. The last time behind my foursome was 4 pros. I bumped into Dustin Johnson in the clubhouse. Ricky Fowler's playing behind me with Uline. And if you don't play fast, you got like a 330-yard drive coming in on your butt. So you got to play fast. So I said to Michael, how did you decide to design the course? And he said, I want to play with these pros. They're my friends. And they hit the ball like 340. I only hit the ball like 280. So at 280, he's got the fairways come in. They narrow. So when the pros hit it, it's harder to hit the fairways. I said, well, what's going to happen, 10 years from now when you hit the ball, 240 like normal people? That's not going to happen.
Hey, how have you?
It looks ridiculous, by the way.
How have you enjoyed The Last Dance so far? How have you enjoyed sort of Michael's portrayal? I love Michael as a player and everything. I think he was unbelievable. I got to tell you, David, he looks like he's half corked in these interviews. He's got his little, I don't know what that whiskey is.
He's got that bourbon going.
I don't know what's going on there.
First of all, let's be serious. It's tequila. He has his own tequila company.
Oh,
is that what it is?
Yes, with 4 other owners. And look, I love the doc. I think the doc is, the doc does several things. Number one, for the average for virtually everybody, but his real inner circle. it gives you an inside look into what the guy is really like. And when you see him sitting in the chair, he's very low key. He's very, very humble. But on the court, he's a killer. And when I watch it, two things, it shows you how incredibly competitive he is, how driven he is to win at everything, which made him as great as he is. The second thing that's interesting to me is having seen so many of his games from 1984 till he retired, in 2003. I think I missed 2 finals games the entire time out of the 6 championships. Now that I watch it, I realize that unless you're legally blind, you can't possibly think that there's another player who ever played the game that's remotely in the league that he's in. Nobody. On both ends of the court, offensively, the athleticism, the smarts, the drive. He got brutalized playing against Detroit. I'd love to see some of today's NBA players play and get knocked down, by Bill Laimbeer and Rodman, like flagrant, stuff, and never said a word, just came back and next time, he's so much better watching it now to me that I thought when I watched him live. And when I watched him live, I thought it was incredible. But now that I see it, 10, 20 years later, maybe it's because it's all highlights, it's just off the charts.
That was an interesting story after they'd lost to the Pistons in, 90, I guess, that, instead of going on vacation, they all went back to the gym and they started working out, and that's when he started to put on the weight. That was very interesting. Didn't know that.
Yeah, because he wasn't into lifting weights then. And,
right.
He's the kind of individual, first of all, Michael's really smart. And he knew that's something he had to do if he wanted to get through the Pistons. I thought the more interesting story at the Pistons when Isiah wouldn't shake hands,
right?
Which is so typical. And they give Michael the iPad to show Isaiah's interview where he's giving his classic Isiah Thomas complete con job that
right.
No one shook hands back then, which is complete hogwash. And there's, it's like I've never had a good relationship with Isiah. Because he's really screwed so many people that I'm close to, including Michael. He froze him out of the All-Star game in '85. He traded Adrian Dantley, who's my older daughter's godfather, when he was on the Pistons to play with his boy, Mark McGuire. And it's one thing to do it. It's his prerogative. He's a great player. I went up to him at the All-Star game one year when it was in Chicago in '88. And he comes up to me in the hallway in the hotel and says, in this really soft voice, like he sounds like a choir boy. He says, David, I just want you to know I had nothing to do with AD getting traded. I said, really? Well, let me tell you something, Zeke. If I believed that, I would be the only human being on earth to believe that. And he tells you in this super sincere way that only a classic con man can do, and expects that you're going to believe it. And Michael, as he said, respects his talent. But he finally came out 2 days ago, I don't know if you saw it, and said that he realizes now that it was a mistake not to shake hands. But, of course, Laimbeer chimed in and said, no, it wasn't a mistake. They were a bunch of whiners. I guess being a whiner gives you excuse to be a bad sportsman.
Well, who was a bigger whiner than Laimbeer?
That's all he did was cry.
No, they said that the Bulls were being whiners the 2 years before when they weren't able to overcome the Pistons. I wanted to point out, Isiah just recently ranked his top players of all time and had Jordan fourth.
Shocker.
Well, I'm surprised he was that high.
Yeah. Well,
Wow,
then what else
crazy.
did he say? Didn't he say that the guys that are playing today, the LeBrons and KDs of the world, would be just as dominant as Jordan back then? Is that when
Let me tell you, I've said this recently. I watch a lot of NBA games, as you know, and, the game evolves. And Michael, because he's such a class act, completely steers away from trying to compare himself to LeBron or Kobe or anybody else. He said that's for the fans to do. But if you ask me, watching all these games with virtually zero defense, no handshaking, I think if Jordan played today, if he was in his prime in today's rules, I think he'd average between 50 and 60 a game. I think he shoots 75. He shoots 75% from the floor. He'd be completely. If you couldn't hand check him, he'd be completely unstoppable.
I agree.
We had a client who used to play for the Knicks who got traded to Chicago late in his career. really smart guy named Rory Sparrow. And Rory now works in the league office. And I asked Rory once, because he's just so smart, I said, Rory, you're playing with the guy now. What makes him so special? And very nonchalantly, he says to me, well, most guys who are great scorers, if you double team them, you're going to shut them down. They'll have to pass the ball. He said, well, Michael, when you double team him, 100% of the time he's going to score on you. But if you triple team him, half the time you can be able to stop him.
Right. And he's going to find the open guy who can knock down shots.
Exactly.
I wanted to ask you, Dave. I'm sorry about that. I was going to ask you, do Michael and Scottie still talk?
Yeah, listen, Scottie, as he pointed out, there's so many things that just people admit. Like in the doc, Scottie pointed out, he leaves Central Arkansas, not exactly Duke or North Carolina or Kentucky or UCLA in basketball. And he comes to the Bulls in 1987 when Jordan's the best player in the league. And his goal is to be the best player on the team. Now, compare that to 1982 when James Worthy comes out of North Carolina, wins the national title, is the MVP in the NCAA tournament, is the number one pick in the draft. And he comes to the Lakers with Magic and Kareem. And I guarantee you that there never was a nanosecond when James Worthy crossed his mind that he was going to be the best players on the Lakers, or that he could care less whether he's going to be the best player on the Lakers, because he's an extremely mature guy. So, Pippen has a certain level of jealousy towards Michael. And, he's said recently many times he thinks LeBron's a better player. Now, if you're Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan made your career, completely made your career, even if you think that, keep it to yourself.
Should be kissing the ring.
So do they actually get along at this point? Do they play golf together?
No, they get along fine. Michael came out and said Scottie was the best team that ever had, which is really classy.
Yeah.
He understood that Scottie provided a certain dimension to him, particularly on the defensive end. Scottie was a great defender because he was so athletic. Scottie's problem, as the documentary points out in several different places after the episodes you've seen, is that he wasn't a great competitor. There were times he just, for silly reasons, he had the migraine. You think that Michael Jordan, unless he had his leg amputated, Michael Jordan had food poisoning before the 5th or 6th playoff game in Utah. He could barely walk, and he scored 38 points. Scottie didn't play a part of that game because he had a headache.
I knew that was coming. No, they don't make them like that anymore. They don't make them like they did Michael and Kobe.
David, we love hearing your stories. Can you hang with us during a break and do another segment? What's the most you've lost to Michael Jordan on the golf course, David?
That's a great question. Okay, so when Michael came to Washington in 1999 to be the president of the Wizards, he joined Caves Valley, which is a great club in Owings Mills, Maryland. I love it. And even though the pro there, Dennis Sattershire, is a famous Duke quarterback, he joined RTJ. We played RTJ like all the time. And if you know how Michael played, Michael's a really good golfer. I was like probably a 15 at the time. So we played the first 2 or 3 times from the next to the back tees, which were about 70, 150, pretty long. And finally one day we show up, no tee time. It's really crowded. It's unusually crowded. And we're playing with the pro, Kerry. He's a great guy. Yep. And we start at number 12. So exactly. So we have a standard bet, he and I. We play a $50 Nassau with automatic presses of 2. So he says to me, today, I've been in all the sand traps off the tee. We're going to play the tips today. So I look at the scorecard, and the tips are like almost 7,400 yards. So I said, Michael, I'm a 15 handicap. I can't freaking play the tips. Now, so what does he say? Classic Jordan. He said, you can't play the tips? Go home. I played the tips. I had 6 triples and a double on the first 7 holes. And so we go in the locker room after every match, and all the workers, the shoe shine guys, the locker room attendants, they say, how'd you do, Mr. Falk? And after about a month of this, I finally one day, so I got a little frustrated. I said, look, let me explain something to you. When I was very young, Michael Jordan paid me a lot of money. Now that I'm old, I'm freaking giving it all back on the golf course. Don't ask me. I'm kicking my ass.
David, are you a poker player?
Yeah, I like to play. I don't like to play big stakes poker, but I enjoy playing.
Yeah, hold on. He says he doesn't like to play big stakes?
Not high stakes. Yeah.
I know there are a lot of underground games where, pretty high stakes for us, for the average person. Do you ever play any of those?
My father my father was a compulsive gambler, and he was a butcher. He never made a lot of money, and what little money he made, he probably lost, 90% of it, at the racetrack. And so, like, I'm a very competitive guy, and I don't mind losing money, but I'm not going to lose it. I'm not going to lose it gambling. So I'm really conscious. About gambling. I think gambling
poker's
is
a game of skill, David. It's classified as a game of skill, not gambling.
When you start believing that, I'll tell you a great story. I'll tell you a great story.
Yeah.
So, I'm very close with John Thompson. I love John Thompson.
Right.
He's sort of one of my heroes in life. And one day he calls me in his office, and we're shooting the breeze. And he said, like, do you like to gamble? I said, I like to play blackjack. And he goes, why? And I said, well, I have this system. It's called progressive betting.
Right,
and, it's like you win the first. And he said, really? You have a system? I said, yeah. He said, can I tell you something? I said, sure. He goes, they send private jets for guys like you that have a system. Because you're going to lose so much freaking money. They're going to fly you out, put you in a beautiful suite, and watch you use your progressive betting system to freaking lose your ass.
Right. 100% right.
So years go by.
That's funny.
And I'm not going to name it. I'm talking to an NBA GM, and I'm trying to sign one of our clients to his team. And he says, David, I really like the guy. He's really talented, but I don't think he fits my system. Now, he said that word. It was like instantaneous. I said, let me tell you something. I have two people that I really respect in basketball. The first one is Coach Thompson. I told him the story about the gambling. I said the second one is Coach K. Coach K is famous for man-to-man defense. I said, but this past year, for the first time in his entire career, he had to start 5 freshmen, and he didn't have time, in a first year to implement his man-to-man defense scheme. So he played zone, and they won the national title. I said, now, Coach, you wouldn't have played the zone, because you would have told the team, look, I'm not a zone guy, I'm a man-to-man guy, and you wouldn't have won, but you would have maintained your system. So you have to be flexible. In sports, I love when people say they have systems. The best coaches, Pat Riley had a system in LA. It's called Showtime. Then he gets to New York, different talent, different group of guys, different rules, and he plays grind it out. Then he gets to Miami. LeBron, Pat Riley is one of the really guys I really have tremendous respect for and friendship. And he's such a smart guy. He adapts. And, smart people don't have systems. They have philosophies, but they adapt their philosophies to what they have to deal with.
Now, David, we brought you on to talk about The Last Dance, and I know that you tell a story about Jerry Krause, who's being maligned a lot in this documentary, but of course he put together the team, but he kind of wanted to break up the team and win a championship without Michael Jordan. I think you tell a story about how you turned purple when you heard that. Purple.
Well, no, I tell you, when I turned, I can't even describe the color. Michael had two. Krause is dead, so I don't want to malign him. I mean, he maligned himself enough. He was just a very obstreperous person when he didn't need to be. But Michael had 2 nicknames for Krause. One was well known. He called him Crumbs because Krause wore what he ate on his shirt. Right. And his second nickname, he called him Sleuth because Krause was very, very secretive. I'm going to tell you 2 hilarious stories. But the first one, Krause, who's very secretive, one day, he must have been drunk. They interviewed him for the Chicago Magazine, and I said, look, you won all these titles. You've been executive of the year a couple of times. What is your dream in life? And he said, my dream is to win an NBA title without Michael Jordan. Now, when I heard that, I went through the ceiling. So I call him up right away, and I said, Jerry, I just read your interview, and I never realized how much you and Michael Jordan have in common. And he said, really? You think that's because we're both the best at what we do? I said, no, Jerry, that wasn't what I was thinking. He said, you think it's because we're both like really competitive guys? I said, no, Jerry, that wasn't what. He goes through like 20 characteristics of people that he thought he had in common with Michael. And I said no to every single one. And he thought, I said, look, I don't get it. Like, what do you think Michael and I have in common? I said, Michael's dream is to win a championship without you. I said, how on earth, even if you, again, there are certain things you may think in the recesses of your mind that you just don't say if you're an intelligent person. Now, the second story, which is even funnier, I'm taking my wife, Rhonda, on vacation to Milan. And the last minute, I have 2 guys working for me, Kenny Grant and Bill Sweet. Bill Sweet played with Kareem at UCLA. He was a guard. And they invite me to the Italian Final Four. in a little town called Forlì, which is south of Bologna. So I route our trip, and now we're going to fly, instead of flying straight to Milan nonstop, we're going to fly to London, and then we're going to fly to Bologna. I got a limo picking up my wife to take her to Milan, and I'm going to go to Forlì for 2 days to watch the Italian Final Four. And my friend Beppe DiStefano, who ran one of the teams, got me like the floor seats, like great tickets. So, if you're an experienced flyer, which I am, and you fly internationally, and you have to work the next day, you get on the plane, you maybe have like a light bite, and you go to sleep. You got to sleep because you get there at 8 o'clock in the morning, and you work the whole next day. So I didn't eat anything. I had a glass of wine, put blinders on, went to sleep for 8 hours. Get to the game, and one of the teams in the game in the Italian Final Four was Kukac's team, Benetton, which is run by my friend Beppe. And so Krause walks in to scout Kukac for the 100th time. And he obviously, unlike me, being the kind of guy he is, he probably ate the dinner, the breakfast, ice cream, watched 2 movies, and didn't sleep awake. So he's literally walking in half asleep, his eyes are closed. And to get to his seat, he loves to sit up high because he thinks it gives him a better angle to scout. And so people can't see the amazing insight that he writes in his notes about the scouting. So to get to his seat, he literally has to walk right by me. So I stand up, and he literally has his head down. He's not even looking. And as he walks within 2 or 3 feet of me, I scream, "Jerry!" like that. And he his eyes open, his jowls are shaking. He's trying to focus, and he cannot begin to fathom. He thinks he's having a dream. Like, the hell is David Falk doing in Italy at this game? I said, "God, you're not here to scout Kukac again, are you?" I said, No, I'm just here. So he goes up to his seat, and halftime comes, and I'm getting a little tired. I've been up now, for over 24 hours. I want to get a Coke, get a little caffeine boost. I turn around, look up in the stands at Krause, and he's completely asleep. His arms are out to the side, and all his notes are open, like all these famous notes he's got. So I go to get a Coke, and I bump into this guy, Dave Corzine, who played for the Bulls, who's a setter, who's playing for he's not playing in the Italian Final Four, but he plays for the team in Forlì. I said, "Dave, you got to come with me. You got to see your boy, the sleuth." His notes are. It was so funny. So after the game, I went in the locker room and introduced myself to Tony. Really nice guy, and then my guys want to take me. We're going to stay at this little town called Imola, about 30 miles away. We walk into the bar to have a drink. It's like there's 6 small tables in the bar, and I order a drink, and we sit down. I look to my left, and who's there 2 tables down but Kukac, Krause, and Kukac's European agent, Mark Crow, who had played at Duke. And Krause is like nose to nose with Tony. He's pounding him, about coming to the NBA. And so I walk up behind Krause, and I slap him on the back as hard as I can. Oh. "Hey, Jerry, how you doing?" He's got crazy. God, it's round 2. I got to see Falk again. I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Just having a nice conversation." I said, "Let me buy you a drink." He said, No, we're just having a social conversation." I said, "Great. Let me buy you a social drink. What do you have?" And so I turned to Kukac, and I said, "Look, when you get done with this intense briefing, slide down to my table, let me buy a drink, and let me tell you the real deal." I walked back, and I called Jerry Reinsdorf, who I love the owner, and I said to him, "If you have any prayer of signing this guy, tell Jerry to stay home. He's driving the guy freaking crazy." He's pounding him. But, the interesting thing, getting back to the doc, I wanted to share this. I talked to Boomer about this, is that, there's a big segment about how upset Scottie was about his contract. Yeah. And I must have had 50 people, text me and say, "God, how did you let Scottie sign that deal?" I said, "Well, first of all, I didn't represent Scottie, so I had nothing to do with it." Right. But, Scottie explained in the doc that he had 2 people in his family, his father and his brother, who had wheelchairs, and he signed the deal because he wanted to have security to be able to take care of his family. And when you opt for security instead of flexibility, there's a price to pay for security. And it wasn't so much as Rick Thielander suggested in the doc that he was the 112th highest paid guy. What really irked Scottie, really got under his skin, is that Krause got 0 credit ever because he had Michael Jordan on his team, and he didn't draft Michael Jordan. Rod Thorne, who is one of my favorite people that I've dealt with in almost 50 years in the NBA. He's actually a consultant for the Wizards now. Rod is one of the really smart guys. He's a great guy. He's really amazing. Michael loves Rod Thorne. I mean, I don't know anyone who doesn't love Rod Thorne. So Rod had drafted Michael, and when he came to when Reinsdorf bought the team at the end of Michael's rookie year, he fired Rod and brought in Krause. And, it's human nature when you have a guy that dominant. People are so big deal. Anybody could win with Michael Jordan, and that's really not true. I mean, you got to give Krause his due. He has 6 rings. Whether he deserves 1% of the credit or 99 doesn't matter. He's got 6 rings. How many GMs other than Red Auerbach, Pat Riley have 6 rings? But Krause, because he was so frustrated, he was so insecure, and he was dying for people to say, it's because of you. So he wanted to find his own Michael Jordan. That was his goal. And he picks the number 1 player in Europe. It wasn't like Kukoc was a sleeper. I mean, Kukoc was the dominant player in Europe. He was like the Doncic of his day, or the Petrovic of his day, or the Vlade Divac of his day. He was a dominant player. And so he signs Kukoc, and he pays Kukoc way more money before he ever played a game for the Bulls than Pippen's making in a second deal. Now that, not really smart, particularly for a player as sensitive as Scottie is. You have to understand who you have on your team. And that move, was like the kiss of death in his relationship with Scottie, more than his personality. It was just crazy.
Who was Scottie's agent, David?
Scottie's agent was a guy named Jimmy Sexton, who now works for CA. He's a big football agent for coaches. And Jimmy was like the grad assistant in Tennessee in football. I mean, he's a fun guy. I wouldn't say, and I'm not trying to make a joke, because he's a pretty chubby guy. I'm not saying he's a heavyweight in the agent business, but,
Hey, David, we don't have that much time left.
What are you talking about? Am I getting paid by the hour here? What's going on?
I could talk to you for hours.
I know, I could too. I love the stories. How do you envision? I don't think we touched on this yet. You talked about how comfortable you're going to feel like getting on an airline and stuff. But how do you envision the leagues coming back? Which one do you see coming back first? And specifically the NBA, because all those guys and a lot of the personalities involved.
Well, first of all, I think Adam Silver has been brilliant how he's handled the NBA's response to this. He was early, he was quick. He's basing it on the science. I think personally, no one has a clue what's going to happen with this pandemic because it's a case of first impression. But I think there are a lot of the states that are opening prematurely without testing. We've tested less than 1% of the people in the country. We've tested less people per capita than Italy, South Korea. And so when the states that open, I think that between the second wave, which is going to come anyway, and the fact we don't have enough information and people are not going to be social distancing, I think there's going to be a second wave that's going to be worse than the first wave. I would personally be surprised if the NBA is back in full swing before like December or January. I think it's going to be like the 98 with the lockout year. I think we're going to have a short season. And it's going to be an interesting experiment, whether that's a good thing down the road. This could usher in maybe a shorter NBA season, which David Stern envisioned 30 years ago, that the season would start after the Super Bowl in February and end at the baseball All-Star break. It'd be like 6 months.
So, David, I think here's what we have to do. All right, we're going to get you on in a couple weeks, maybe after episodes 7 and 8. All right, we'll get you on to talk a little bit about The Last Dance. We'll get you on the Zoom.
Yeah.
We'll get the golf simulator in the mix, and we'll pick a random hole, right? We could pick TPC of Sawgrass. We could pick something from the Masters.
Any course. He's got the top of the line.
and you take us through one of the holes.
That would be awesome.
Bethpage Black. I mean, sure, we could do. We could do the show at my house if you want. If we're not social distancing, you can come over.
We got to do that.
Yeah, we got to
do that from David's house.
Yeah,
that would actually be fun.
Well, listen, first of all, I love hanging with you guys. You guys are really fun. Really fun. I really, really enjoy it. Appreciate you inviting me on. And I could talk. I'll tell you a couple of things before we go. My friend Michael Tolan produced The Last Dance. Yeah. Michael did the show. Remember the show Arliss?
Yeah,
of course.
Yeah.
He produced Arliss, Varsity Blues. He's really, really a talented talented guy. He's in business with Peter Gruber, who owns, the Warriors and the Dodgers and the football team. It's one of the smartest guys in America in sports. I'm a huge Peter Gruber fan. He was the head of Sony Pictures years ago. And so he and Tolan are partners. And the doc is terrific. I hope personally, and I'm sure it won't, that the doc ends all talk about, like, is Jordan competitive with LeBron? He's in a different league. If you don't see that with your eyes, you should, when the doctor's office opens, you should have an eye test.
All right, so David, we'll have you on in a couple weeks, and
stuff,
then
bud.
we'll talk about the toaster. But you can certainly send them
toaster.
our way.
Yeah, I want a toaster, man. Come on.
It's called, we don't even call it a toaster. It's called Revolution, and it's the most significant technological breakthrough in toasters in over 100 years. And so guys like you, when you're rushing out of the house and you want to eat something, and you don't have 5 minutes to toast your toast and have it come out like, all, mistoasted and dry, you put this in there and, like, pops out in like 90 seconds or less, and it tastes great. And you should definitely have one. You should probably put it on the Zoom and have you guys do a celebrity demonstration to the fans.
That.
Like,
as long as we get to keep the product.
Yeah, I don't want to pay a car payment for it.
Is it like those things that they use like at Subway or something when they toast your bread?
No. That's amateur hour. That's
higher end.
This is seriously. This is a really major breakthrough in cooking technology. Next year we're going to come out with an oven that's going to be even more revolutionary. So this is like the warm up. You guys, hey, listen, JP. I haven't seen your wife in the gym in like 2 years, but I know she's a big workout person. I should call her and say, like, why hasn't JP bought you one of these Revolution toasters?
Yeah, you squeaker. Why have you done that, JP?
Because he's cheap.
Hey, how do you know that I haven't?
You cheap bastard.
How do you know that I haven't, David?
Because you would have texted me.
Because he knows you.
All right, David, man, great stuff.
Thank
we'll talk to you in a
guys.
couple weeks, all right?
First of all, stay safe, and we'll definitely, I'm into modern technology. We're going to do Zoom next time. I do Zoom. I got it on my. All right, you're in.
Yep.
All right, that's the
Thanks,
great David
buddy.
Falk.